On today's episode, we discuss tradition, what it means in the fire department, and why it matters.
The Fireground Company Podcast.
Okay, we're back with another episode of the Fireground Company Podcast, and this is a big one. Tradition is one of the pillars of our brand and our mission. I think for us, Cap, and probably for a lot of our listeners, we know what we mean when we say tradition in the fire department, right? But when you try to define it, it's actually difficult to nail down what we mean by tradition and why we think it's so important. But we're going to try.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can start with a standard definition of what tradition is. And so I grabbed that from ChatGPT, which is kind of funny because we're talking about tradition and then we're talking about getting something from ChatGPT. And I don't know how I feel about that because part of me hates technology. And obviously we're doing a podcast. So we embrace it, I guess, to the minimum level we need to be useful.
What did you say when we were setting up? It's a necessary evil.
Necessary evil, exactly. Yeah. So, but I guess we're going to be cool or whatever and, use ChatGPT. So I don't know. I was just messing with it anyway. So this is what it says, which seems like it lines up with if you actually use a dictionary with pages and print. It's pretty close to the same. So it says, tradition refers to the customs, beliefs, practices, rituals, or cultural elements passed down from one generation to another within a community, society, or group. These practices are typically maintained over time and can be a key part of a group's identity. Traditions may include things like festivals, ceremonies, family customs, and social norms that are preserved and honored by people over the years. So there you go.
It's actually a pretty good definition.
Yeah, it's not bad.
All right. Well, done. Tradition. Podcast over. There you have it, folks.
Let's go.
All right. Thank you, ChatGPT. All right. Not really. That's good, though. And there are a couple of key points there to highlight. Tradition is customs, beliefs, practices, rituals, and cultural elements. It is passed down from one generation to another within a group, maintained over time. It is a key part of a group's identity, and tradition is preserved and honored. So you can see how that applies to the fire department, right?
Yeah.
When I was trying to come up with a definition, this is what I came up with. Tradition, as we mean it here, is practices, ideologies, and patterns that carry meaning, identity, and purpose from one generation to the next. So I think that's actually pretty similar. And in the fire department, along with ceremonies, customs, uniforms, things like that, we have other unique ways of carrying on tradition too, like ways of communicating, unique language that we use, bonding rituals, unwritten rules of the firehouse, displays of pride like patches and the way we customize our rigs and firehouses, things like that, which are unique to the fire department. So, all right, what do you think? What does tradition mean specifically for the fire department?
Yeah, I mean, you hit on a lot of it. It's, of course, the ceremonies, the uniforms. That's all part of it. And they're important, but there's more. The history, and that's going to be different everywhere. So the history of the fire department as a whole and what it means to us in the United States and what it locally and what it means to your individual fire department and what it means to your firehouse. And even it could go down to your shift. So there's things, if you look on your apparatus, there's things that you may carry over from, rig to rig. Like you could have, I've seen some fire departments where they'll have a plaque of members that have, passed away in the line of duty. And that means, of course, a lot. And that plaque gets carried on to the next rig that they have. And that's part of an important tradition, not to forget those guys that passed away doing the job, the ultimate sacrifice. If you have the colors of the apparatus. I mean, that's for some reason that is real emotional, which I guess I kind of get because I do like a red fire truck, and I know there's probably outliers out there that don't, but Man, it's just that feels right. And I know we've a lot of fire departments and the country has experimented with a bunch of different colors. So something as simple as that is your tradition. And if you think about it, even your whether whatever you call them, SOPs, SOGs, your procedures, that that's a part of tradition too, because a lot of times, where do they come from? Well, they come from previous experiences that you have had, and you've learned from those. And at some point, someone decided, hey, we should write down what actually worked and write down what didn't work. So this didn't work too well last time. Maybe we need to do it this way the next time. And okay, yeah, that did work. So at some point, departments started writing that stuff down, and that is part of the traditions of your department. And I mean, it could even be, I mean, I almost hate to say it, but administrative stuff. There's ways that you handle paperwork or the administrative aspects of, how you do leave, how you do overtime. And it really, when you start thinking about tradition, it affects, there's the cool, sexy stuff. And then there's the everyday stuff that when you hear people say, oh, that's the way we've always done it. That's the way we do it. So, and that can be pretty powerful because you may not actually have a written policy on how you do things, but everyone knows, well, that's what we do here. And so you start thinking about that, and it really comes down to it's how we tell the story of our fire department to ourselves and to the other people outside of the fire department, whether that's family, whether that's the civilians that we protect, other fire departments. That's really what it is. It's a story that we tell people about us and how we do things. And there could be a lot of things that are common between different departments and at large throughout the nation, or very individual. So I just find it interesting. We don't always think about all those little things, but it's all part of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that. And that's starting to answer the next question I have for you. And that's, what do you think tradition does for the fire department, and why do we need it?
That's a real important question nowadays. It's, I think people are devaluing the traditions that we have, and maybe some of the more visible ones and some of the ones that aren't as visible. But it's important because it gives you a standard. That's what it's a story first, like I just said. It's a story of who we are, what we have done, and it's a standard for us to live up to going forward. So that's the next part of it. So you use it and you build off of it. It gives you direction. It's the direction that you need to go, and it's not always going to be spelled out. So you may have some traditions of how you operate. You may have some traditions of how you handle things at the company level, but everything doesn't neatly fit in, but at least gives you a direction, a roadmap to guide you of how you should act. And I remember, I'm thinking back to, you can even have, I guess what I'm trying to say here is you can even have personal traditions for yourself. And I think back to when I started the fire academy, the officer teaching it, the first day he walked in, he wrote on the board a few different things, and he said, all right, you're going to write this down, obviously, so we didn't forget it and could reference it and make sure we really knew this was important. So he started out and he wrote "we," then underneath that he wrote "do the right thing." Then after that, "step up," then "no excuses," and finally, "all or nothing." He says that's what you're going to do. And we went through each one and said, everything is together. So we do stuff together. You operate in a company. You operate almost always with another firefighter at minimum, sometimes independently, but it's usually you're operating with someone else and together as a company. And that's very important. That's a tradition, maybe a rule in a way. And then do the right thing. Well, what does do the right thing mean? you kind of know. Sometimes I feel like more recently we have to explain this to people, but I think you know pretty quickly when especially when people start pointing things out. Do the right thing. What is do the right thing? And you have that feeling where, all right, hey, I don't want to clean the apparatus, but I should clean it right now. We should wash it off. We should go and clean these tools. They're not terrible, but we want to uphold that tradition of clean tools and clean apparatus at this firehouse. So do the right thing. And then step up was the next one. Someone needs help with something or something needs to be get done. Do it. Do it. And I'm talking about not a lot of the fun stuff, hey, the towels need to be washed at the firehouse, or this kitchen area around the coffee maker needs to be cleaned. Step up, do it. And then no excuses. And that means just you can explain what happened, but don't make excuses. Be honest with yourself and the other, firefighters about what happened, what you screwed up. Take ownership of that and then move forward. Don't try and blame it on other people. Don't try and, point all those fingers. So that's very important. And then all or nothing. So we're going to get this done. To me, an example is you're moving a hose line in and you have to get to that endpoint. But sometimes it's hard moving that hose line to where it needs to go to actually put the fire out. And that all or nothing is, I have to get this job done no matter what. Or you're in the hallway, you're humping hose, you're exhausted. You have to keep going because there's someone on the end of that nozzle that's close, that's in danger if they don't get that fire out and they need to get that done. Or you're searching and you need to get that search done. Whether there's a report of someone in there or not in there, it's your job. You got to get it done. You're tired, you're fatigued. So that's all part of it. That's tradition that he was trying to instill in us from day one that we really should pass down to the other guys in recruit school and in the firehouse. And then, I don't know, I came up with my own personal one that no slack kind of came from, books and some other stuff I read, but it just helped me, I guess, when I'm tired or beat down, just saying, hey man, there's no slack. You got to keep doing it. You got to get it done. So that's all part of tradition and maybe not in a standard way you think about it.
Yeah, I like no slack. I mean, obviously, I love all of that, and I like how concise it is. No slack is something we say, I think, a lot around our firehouse because it's something you can just. It's just it snaps you back. If you don't feel like doing something, no slack. You're tired, no slack.
Yeah.
So trying to think of all of this and just kind of capture the importance of tradition to the fire department. I kind of came back to one thing I kept thinking, and it's kind of a good summary. And I said, tradition is kind of all the good stuff that gives us the sensation of being firemen, and that it's more than just a job.
Yeah, I mean that's dead on. The other important part to this is it's the story, it's the standard, and it's the buy-in that you have. So you have to as an individual, which, a lot of times, saying you're an individual is a bad thing in the fire department, but, as a individual, you have to buy into the traditions of the group. You have to be a part of that to make it work. And that's what's on you. So again, start with know what they are. And when you're early on in your career, you may not know them all. Pay attention to the formal and the informal ones and believe in them. I mean, some of them may seem, silly to you at first because a lot of times you don't understand the background, the story that went into why that actually was a tradition. So buy into it, believe into it, ask questions, especially in a respectful way, because some stuff could mean a lot. I guess some stuff may not seem like much to you, but it means a lot to someone else. So ask people about the things that are going on, and what's the story behind that, and um, that that really also can bring you together as a company, and you can build on that. And the older guys are gonna, I think, appreciate that you're asking about that stuff.
Yeah, I think, just listening to everything you just said, I think one of the things that we have to understand at all levels of the fire department and administration specifically is that tradition makes us better. And it makes the job more fun too for us. And I think that's something, for some of the younger people, like, well, what's the point? Why do I buy in? Trust me, if you buy into this stuff, it's going to make the job more rewarding
Yeah.
and more fun. It makes you more bought in. There's something real there. And I think if you're in a department that has healthy tradition alive and well, your job is to continue protecting it. But, and you may have touched on this a little bit already, but what would you say to someone who's listening to this, who is in a department that's losing touch with tradition, or maybe never had any, some of these newer growing departments? What do you do if it's not there for you already?
Yeah. I was just thinking about our department. Our department's pretty old. Definitely one of the older departments in the nation if you go all the way back. And at some point, prior to even starting here myself, the tradition, a lot of the traditions got wiped out. I mean, I don't know exactly what happened. So, you're saying, a newer department or a young department may not have traditions, but you could even be in a department that has been around for a while that they got wiped out by someone. There was because they thought they were foolish or worthless. So, um, look back if you're, look back and see if there are any. They may have been lost.
Mm.
So start with that, man. Maybe they're there and they were lost. Look back for the formal ones. If your department has any history books, or just ask some of the more senior firefighters or officers and say, are there any traditions that we used to do here? Is there anything, like, did we have any kind of, were there formal ceremonies that we used to have every year, or awards, or, what was there a reason for the color of the apparatus? If you have something unique, or, start with that. If you don't know, look into that, those kind of historical things. And then, look at things you can do. So they don't have to be big things, because you can start a tradition. It doesn't have to be the formal ones, the ceremonies. I mean, by all means, you can start those. You can, talk to a small group of people and run with an idea to have a company, Christmas party, or, whatever, a summer party, or some kind of cookout, or a trip. You go on some kind of, trip with everyone. So those are easy ones to start. Maybe the more formal stuff is you have to obviously get the department on board and more people. But, think about some maybe smaller things you can do.
There's some good books on this stuff too. I'm going to read a passage from a book here, which is something we're doing sometimes on this podcast. And honestly, I wish for this episode I could just read the whole damn book, because it's got some really good stuff. And this would be a good place to start. And the book is Pride and Ownership by Rick Lasky. This book does a great job of kind of capturing what we're talking about here, with some of the older traditions and where they came from and what they mean. I've picked out a passage here that kind of captures just the overall sensation of what we're getting at. And this is from a different perspective. So here it is. We can't fulfill our mission and meet our goals if we don't live by core values. And I'm talking about realistic, attainable core values. We have to have something that the entire group believes in. We have to have something to stand by. We have to have something that people will see firsthand that we stand for. My buddy John Salka and I have always wondered what they do to the Marines in that short time of service that has them still wearing the jacket, shirt, or ball cap with the Marine Corps insignia on it, even when they've been out of the Corps for years. The answer is an easy one. They instilled a set of core values that Marines live by, believe in, and support, not just for a while, but forever. There's a saying, once a Marine, always a Marine. It's very much the same for a firefighter. If you have the love for the job, for your brothers and sisters, and for the honor of our profession, yes, you're at a point where you may feel that once a firefighter, always a firefighter. But without core values, we have no vision, no guiding principles. Without a vision, we have no way of fulfilling our mission. Without a mission, we're like a bunch of ducks wandering in a thunderstorm, kind of hoping that what happens for the right reasons. Bottom line, our mission is to treat people like family and to take care of those around us. Our mission is very clear, to be there for people when they really need us. And he goes on to say that most people didn't get into firefighting for the money. You're never going to get rich being a firefighter. So there's got to be something else, right? Something that money can't buy. And I think part of that answer is the opportunity to take part in the rich tradition and culture that's so unique to the fire department. Which kind of leads me to my next question. Cap, I know your son is starting to take an interest in the fire department. So what would you tell younger guys about the traditions of the fire department? How would you sell them on the tradition and attract guys who are bought in?
All right. Well, first, you joined the fire department, right? You joined the fire department. The fire department didn't join you.
Mm-hmm.
So remember that. You're asking to be a part of this. Go in with that attitude. I want to be a part of this. I'm joining this and what they have to carry it on. Remember that. Then buy into the traditions that are already there and live up to them in the fullest possible sense. So the fullest possible sense, you do that. And then over time, you can look to create your own small traditions with the guys you work with and do whatever that entails. But I guess it's a small thing, but it can be a big thing, is don't thump your chest about the traditions, especially when you're creating them. Don't try and be too special or to look at us. Just do them, man. If you want to start something or whatever, just go and do the tradition and see how it works out. Don't do it to, I guess that's a bit of a key that we haven't talked about, is don't do it to be special in and of itself. Do it because it has some meaning and brings the guys together.
Still listening this far, you're probably thinking, okay, yeah, this is all awesome, but that's not really the job. So look, we do this job too. It's not glorious most of the time. This stuff all sounds great, but after, 10 BLS emergencies and 4 fire alarms at 3 a.m, it kind of starts to seem like BS, right? All that stuff is just irrelevant, and the routine crap, that's the reality. But I think that's kind of the point we're trying to make, is that if we don't have the tradition, the job can very quickly just become the suck. And tradition and all of this other stuff we're talking about, that's what keeps it special, and that's what keeps it fun. I have a lot of moments where I'm like, what is this job? What the hell am I doing? But the tradition, the culture, it brings me back. All right, Cap, can I get deep with you for a minute here?
All right, go.
All right. So, yeah, I was just kind of thinking, we have a pretty young department. And I think we all want to belong to something that feels important for reasons that maybe we don't understand, something that great men did before us, something we can't quite grasp, but we know that it feels cool to be a part of it. And I see a lot of lost young souls these days. They've sort of lost their grounding. They've lost their sense of place in this world. I see a lot of these young kids come through on the job, and they're stuck on their phones. Of course, they're looking for entertainment and distraction, but I think in a kind of deeper way, is where it gets deep here. They're searching for identity and meaning, and I guess, connection. And what they don't realize is that it's all right here for them in the fire department if they would just stop being so damn distracted and dig in.
It's what I've heard people say about the military sometimes, where they go into the military and it gives you that responsibility. It turns you into a man because there's expectations that you have to meet, and if you don't meet those, there's consequences. And some of the stuff, sports can be a little bit the same, where if you're part of a sports team growing up or something like that, where you have certain standards, again, you have to meet. There's consequences if you don't meet those standards. And it allows you to grow. It allows you to be more responsible, and things like the responsibility you get in the fire department, you really can feel like, all right, you turn that corner, you're a man, you have that responsibility, you've bought in, and some of it can be forced on you, but it's really your reaction and your buy-in to that is going to change you. And that's what you have to do. You have to buy into it to really get the benefit out of it, to change yourself for the better, which is what the job of firefighting is offering you.
Mm. Do you have a favorite fire department tradition, or one that's particularly meaningful to you?
I don't have a formal one. I don't have a formal one. I mean, mine is more informal, and it's simple, but I love it in the sense of what it means, and how you feel when you're on the other side of it is be physically and mentally tough and get the job done, period. There's something about the simplicity of that and the beauty of that I like. I like the challenge of that. And when you meet that challenge, you feel good. You feel good. No matter how miserable you felt in the moment, man, when you get through that, you feel good.
Amen. That's awesome.
All right. So covered a lot. Any other thoughts on tradition before we wrap it up?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think this is something we'll return to in different ways from time to time. I think the takeaway here is this: tradition matters. It's a sort of invisible power that unites us. It helps us come to a sense of agreement on what we stand for. Rich tradition is the story, as you said, of the fire department. And I think it's a big part of why we chose to do the job in the first place. It gives people something to feel connected to and gives them a greater sense of purpose. And another thing, I think our communities want us to uphold tradition. We don't talk about that a lot. Rick Lasky, he said, everyone wants a firehouse down the street. So let's give them a real firehouse and not just another business.
Yeah. I think that's a good point to end. Thanks for stopping by, listening to the podcast.
Thanks for listening.
Check us out at firegroundcompany.com. You'll find links to all our social media accounts and our YouTube channel, and you'll stay up to date on everything we're working on. We also have a store on our website where you can support us as we grow this community, plus working on some great courses to help you strengthen your leadership in the fire department and support its traditions and culture. Last but not least, subscribe to the podcast, give us a rating, leave a comment, spread the word, get this out to the firefighters who are hungry to make the job even better.
The Fireground Company Podcast.